There are a lot of Mario games. Hundreds of official Mario games have been made over the past 4 decades, and if you consider fan games, then surely there's thousands. And despite not being talked about as much as other types of Mario fan games, I reckon a large chunk of them are Scratch games. You know Scratch. The thing where you drag around essentially Lego bricks to program whatever you want. Because Scratch is so accessible and usually the first step if you want to get into proper programming, of course plenty of people have made Mario games with it. While a lot of them are fairly basic as you'd expect, some people have developed their skills far enough to make some pretty cool and interesting stuff, which is what I'll be focusing this video on. Some games even really push the limitations of Scratch, so with that said, let's get started and delve into the world of Mario Scratch games. The decent ones, not the Little Timmy's first video game ones. First up, we've got a recreation of the original Super Mario Bros. Well, kind of. The game is clearly based off Super Mario Bros., reusing its graphics, music and sounds faithfully. However, the levels here aren't actually just one-to-one remakes as you'd expect, but are instead completely original, which is nice. They still feel like Mario levels, containing coins, bricks, Goombas, you know, the usuals. But the terrain here seems to be a bit more varied than the original game, in addition to a really nice parallax background in the first level, and some neat transitions not present in the source game. The game controls pretty well too, with the physics feeling more akin to the new Super Mario Bros. Games, which have more refined physics than the original NES game in my opinion. Now sadly there's only 2 levels to this game, so it's a bit on the short side, even for a Scratch game which are usually pretty short anyway, but it's a pretty cool proof of concept, and the 2 levels that are here are enjoyable and very well made. But what if you want a more faithful Super Mario Bros. Experience? Well, there's a shockingly accurate remake of the first 2 levels in Scratch, like, really accurate. Not only does it look and control good, but every little detail has been faithfully recreated here, including the squares popping out of enemies, the invisible block in 1-1, piranha plants staying instead of pipes while you stand beside them. It's very impressive stuff. It must have taken a while to replicate all these little things, especially considering the simplistic nature of Scratch. If it wasn't for vertical scrolling, which, to be honest, probably only exists due to the resolution of Scratch projects, and a couple of very small issues, I probably think I'd be playing on an emulator, or, Nintendo Switch Online service, yeah. And don't forget this was made in Scratch, literal Lego bricks, which makes this all the more impressive. So we just looked at a couple of the Super Mario Bros. Remakes, and unsurprisingly there's plenty of remakes of other Mario games out there, but I'm sure you won't see the more original stuff. So here's Brad. Brad's made a lot of Scratch games mimicking Nintendo's official games, such as Super Mario World and New Super Mario Bros. U. But in 2018, he had a shot at making the more original 2D Mario game with Super Mario 4 Scratch. As you can see, the sprites here aren't ripped straight from an existing game, like a lot of Brad's previous Mario remakes, but are instead all specifically made for this game by Brad. Although the art is nothing super impressive, it does have a lot of charm to it and really gives off that classic Scratch 2.0 vector look, which is quite nostalgic to me as someone who used to use Scratch quite a lot back then. The levels themselves are pretty standard Mario feeling stages, simple but fun, but they don't really feel like any Mario game in particular, which is interesting as I feel it shows us what Brad's general perception of what a Mario game would be like. Which from what I can tell seems to be a mix of the original Super Mario Bros, Super Mario World, maybe some new Super Mario Bros, and what Brad's first Mario game was. Anyway, each of the 4 main levels have a distinct theme to them. You got your typical grassland stage, a desert featuring pokies and falling platforms, a water level with cheap shapes, and lastly a castle with a Bowser fight at the end, which is always cool to see. There are even some bonus levels, which although don't really contain any new mechanics except for the final one having lava bubbles, are a nice addition considering the base game is fairly short. Also, props for having a space theme level. Seeing the obscure themes that aren't commonly used in the 2D Mario games are always appreciated. So yeah, Super Mario for Scratch is a decent little Mario game. What else is there to say? Well, there are in fact 3 additional sequels to this game, all made by good old Brad. The Super Mario for Scratch 2, having a new moveset including the ground pound, wall jump, spin and the duck walk.
Cool, huh?
Moves aside, there's also a nice wee hub world, and the level design is more open than the first game, where you're collecting power stars scattered across each level as opposed to simply running all the way to the right until you reach the goal. Definitely a good improvement over the original. Oh yeah, and you can't forget floods in this game as well. Very epic. And then there's Super Mario for Scratch 3, which is more in line with the first game with its more linear level design approach. The level design is a lot more fun and fleshed out I feel. Oh yeah, and there's power-ups now, including the Fire Flower and even the Tanuki suit. And there's also a level where everything's massive and you'll love to see it. And the game uses a lot of music from Super Mario 3D Land and World, which I think is fitting considering the game's more linear compared to the previous one. Almost like how 3D Land and World were compared to Galaxy, Sunshine and 64. And lastly in the main series is Super Mario for Scratch 4, which goes back to the more open approach of the second game, but with vastly improved graphics that still retain that scratchy charm because, you know, it's still made in Scratch. There's level design that I feel has been improved, power stars being replaced with power bolts that don't kick you out the level like the second game. There's a long jump, a new throwing mechanic, more obscure characters and themes, and most importantly, the rocket ship from Pikmin. Also, what? I thought we were done with the original Super Mario Bros. Anyway, this is the best out of the 4 Super Mario for Scratch games for definite. Apart from these main games, there's also a remaster of the first one, which changes up the graphics and some extra stuff, and there's also a Mario Maker styled game which is sick. But what I find the coolest part of all this is how Brad has influenced other creators. So Brad made Super Mario for Scratch, as you know, but from other creators there's Super Mario on Scratch, Super Mario in Scratch, Super Mario at Scratch, Super Mario with Scratch, Super Mario scratches on your window at 3am. Okay, I made that one up. The point being, Brad's Mario games are inspiring other creators to make their own, which I personally find really cool. Not to mention someone called Mario Fan 235 made a modified and expanded version of Brad's Super Mario Maker, which adds vertical scrolling, improved UI, more level themes, and new objects to mess around with, which is really cool. Now, a moment ago I mentioned Super Mario on Scratch being one of the many Brad-inspired games. That's a really interesting one actually. So here it is. Like, yeah, you could just say it's a clone of Brad's first game, and the 4 level themes are all the same. But the game has 5 additional sequels and some spin-offs, with the latest being this, Super Mario on Scratch 6 Enlightened, and my goodness is it mad impressive. First of all, this game looks stunning for a Scratch game. It controls buttery smooth, there's a Peach's Castle hub world, original character designs and renditions of Mario music, a wide moveset, and large open levels complete with full vertical and horizontal scrolling. Like, this all originated from like a pretty basic clone of Brad's game. Like, mad props to the creator, this is incredible. Truly shows that big projects like these can come from humble beginnings. I've only played the first few levels of the game so far, but honestly it rivals some of the proper good fan games made outside Scratch in terms of quality. There's like an hour's worth of content? That's not only good for like any old fan game, but for a Scratch game, that's crazy. Again, amazing work, Duck Goose. You've probably created like one of the most impressive Mario games in Scratch. Okay, so we've looked at plenty of the Super Mario for Scratch related games, so let's see what else Scratch has to offer in terms of that juicy Mario content. Check this out, a Super Mario Kart remake on Scratch. It's just the first track of the game, Mario Circuit 1, but look at it, it's 3D. If you're not aware, Scratch doesn't have any 3D capabilities out of the box, so Finley Cool had to code the entire 3D rendering engine and all that completely from scratch. It's also rather impressive how smoothly it controls, considering it's difficult to get 3D rendering working with Scratch at a decent frame rate for external tools. But you can toggle to a slightly higher resolution mode, which doesn't seem to affect the performance too much, at least for me. But you know what's more impressive than that? Mario goes to the fridge to get a glass of milk. The game. The graphics, stunning. The gameplay, riveting. The story, brought a tear to my eye. Truly an experience I won't forget. Alright, jokes aside, I actually really like the sprites for Mario here, they have a lot of charm. I've been saying that a lot, haven't I? Here's a cool one. Super Mario Bros. S, which might stand for Scratch, I'm not really sure. Anyway, this is a collaborative game managed by Super Pie 2, and it's really interesting. It has the aesthetic of the original Super Mario Bros, but it plays more like the new Super Mario Bros. Games, and clearly has some Mario Maker influence too. The controls took a bit of getting used to, but the level design here is some of the best I've seen so far, really feeling like modern Nintendo made levels. There's some cool mechanics in this game too, such as the on-off blocks, these original purple Goomba enemies that charge at you once approached, called Goombuffs, a new red star power-up that lets you throw projectiles straight ahead of you, plus allowing you to do a close-up attack, and screen warping, which is definitely an underappreciated Mario mechanic, which is awesome to see. This game used to get regular updates here on Scratch, with the latest one being at the start of 2021, but this stops because the fan game shifted development from Scratch to the Unity game engine, where the game feels much smoother, almost like I'm running Mario Maker on my PC. Anyway, this is a video about Scratch Mario fan games, so it's really cool to see how it got its start here on Scratch. And I think it's good to end off this video talking about a game I, yes me, have had a lot of involvement and memories with, Super Mario Scralaxy. Super Mario Scralaxy is another collaborative game, founded in 2017 by Nickelodeon. It started out as a simplistic Mario platformer with one endlessly looping level, but over time, it's grown into a much bigger Mario adventure split into different missions like Mario Galaxy or 64, still getting updates to this day. Despite being called Super Mario Scralaxy, get it? Scratch. Galaxy. The game has a lot of Mario 64 influence too, such as having Peach's Castle as a hub world, and even some other games too like Donkey Kong Country, as you'll see in a bit. I actually joined the development team of this game a few weeks after the project had begun, and it was amazing having the opportunity to implement my own ideas such as items and characters into the game, as well as simply seeing the game evolve. I remember when update 0.4.8 was released by a user called RedYoshi857, which completely changed the game by adding an entire hub world, which was previously just a single screen, 6 brand new star missions when the game only had 3 before, a prologue section based off the first Mario Galaxy, cutscenes, flip switch platforms, and even a Donkey Kong styled minecart. As for the game's state right now, it still wasn't complete as there have been some periods of inactivity over the years, but it's still being worked on with currently over 20 stars to collect, a variety of level elements and mechanics, multiple unlockable characters, an objective system which are essentially achievements, multiple minigames, and did I forget to mention there are a few levels that take place inside a computer running Windows XP out of all things. Also, despite myself moving on from Scratch to develop proper big boy games using the Unity game engine, I still find myself coming back to Scratch to specifically contribute to Scralaxy team's games. Wait a second, did I say games? With an S? Yes, the development team named Scralaxy team actually has multiple projects running. There's Mario Kart 8 Scralaxy, which is a 2D remake of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe with a lot of extra original ideas. Super Mario Scratchy World, which is based on 3D World, Mario Party S, a Mario Party game, and even some more. Most of these games aren't very far for development, but Mario Kart and especially Scralaxy have made a lot of good progress, with Scralaxy having a lot of content that feels very near complete. I'm looking forward to seeing where these games go next, and perhaps I'll contribute myself to them a little bit every now and then. Well, there you have it. That was a taste of the world of Mario Scratch games. They definitely go to show that despite Scratch being literally just coding with Lego bricks, people can still build some cool and even impressive stuff with those bricks, despite all the restrictions. And these creations can inspire others to create their own and even form collaborative communities. If you want to try out any of the games featured in this video, then just head down to the description. But I'm curious, have you played any of these Scratch games before? Do you have any memories with them? Did I miss any good games? Let me know in the comments. And with that said, the video is now over, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.